meeting of the Manitowoc County Board to order. First, we will have invocation by Supervisor Phipps, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Father in heaven, thank you for this year and thank you for all these men and women. Please bless us with wisdom, knowledge, and discernment. Please remind us in this Christmas season, as you came to serve us, help us to serve others. And most of all, thank you for sending your Son to serve us and die for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Supervisor Phipps. Roll call is going around. We have 23 members present. Supervisor Bauman is excused, and I believe Supervisor Niles is on his way. First, we have consideration or correction of the minutes from our last meeting in November. I have a motion to approve by Supervisor Benke, second by Supervisor Engelbrecht. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. We have no additions or deletions to the agenda, so that'll take us into reports by the county executive and I. We have a proclamation declaring January 2023 as Mentoring Month for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and I'll invite Nikki up to accept the proclamation. Whereas everyone remembers someone special, a neighbor, a teacher, relative, or friend who broadened our horizons and brought a little magic into our lives. And whereas one way to return the favor is to mentor a child. And whereas every adult has something to offer, and 1 hour a week can make a difference in a child's life, and the mentor does not have to change his or her life to change a child's. And whereas research has shown that children engaged in the one-to-one professionally supported mentoring programs of Big Brothers, Big Sisters are more likely to finish high school and less likely to begin using drugs and alcohol, skip school, or be involved in violence. And whereas in Manitowoc County, there are many young people who want and would benefit from having a mentor. Now, therefore, we, County Executive Bob Ziegelbauer and County Board Chair Tyler Martell, along with the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of January 2023 as Mentoring Month in Manitowoc County and encourage citizens, businesses, public and private agencies, religious and educational institutions to support mentoring and give young people in our community the gift of time and friendship through Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the Wisconsin Shoreline. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
I just want to make sure I say, I'm loud enough. I want to make sure and say thank you to everyone for considering us. There are a lot of great mentoring situations out there, but right now, our youth really need some one-to-one. And 4 hours a month of your time to show up to be that person in their life that they can count on, that's trusted, that will be there through the long run, through the tough times, and through the good times is always very needed. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted you to go ahead and remember my face. So when I reach out to all of you and tell you that I'm gonna come for your groups or I'm gonna come for your organizations and we're gonna have a conversation and do some presentations, and of course bowling's coming up, so we got some big stuff planned there. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful holiday, and I will see many of you in January. Thank you.
Okay, and that will bring us into public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak tonight? Yes, Mr. Wire. And if you could, just please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gene Wire. I live at 6300 Hartlip Lake Road. That's in the town of Newton. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read a letter that you've received, okay, from Judith Perlman, and I'd like to add my comments along with them. Okay, so basically you're getting 2 for 1. So you can look along and there's some slight changes here. Slight. So ladies and gentlemen, first my apologies. This is Judith Perlman talking, okay? I had every good intention of speaking to you in person, but I am down with either flu or COVID, and I have put myself in isolation. I hope that you will consider this issue, the issue of the courthouse, very carefully, and I have the opportunity to address you in person in the near future. In the meantime, anyone on the board may feel free to get in touch with me with any questions or comments about my public input. Next, I want to say what this is not about. This is not about whether I value history. I majored in history in college. My age is showing. I am of the generation when a liberal arts education was deemed to be the best education for citizens facing lifelong participation in their democracy. I have traveled the country and the world to look at historic buildings. Neither is this about Bob Ziegelbauer. We each have our opinions of Bob. I voted for him. I did too. I appreciate how he has run the county. I do too. That's me. All my interactions with him have been cordial, professional, and helpful. Absolutely. However, your fiduciary duty is to the county, the voters, the residents, and it is not to Bob Ziegelbauer. This is a huge decision for the county and its residents. Consequently, I have a lot of questions before we run out and issue $30 million in bonds. First, and I think one of the most important things, is what are other communities doing? What are the best practices? In Wisconsin, Illinois, and neighboring Midwest states, there are easily 150 old courthouses, just like Manitowoc. Before spending $30 million, I would hire someone for a month to get on the phone and find out some basic information like, what's the age of their courthouse? Has it been maintained? What's the cost of those repairs? Were the repairs done to historic designation standards? That's a big one. Where did they get the money? Also big. Is the building being used? If so, for what? What's the size of the county? The size of their tax base? Is it growing or shrinking? We will likely see a pattern emerging on how communities handle this. And I urge looking for best practices. That's really what it comes down to. We've got to see what other people are doing. It's a big-time decision. Another question, can we preserve and continue to use the building in a more cost-effective way? Is it possible to have the building taken off the register of historic buildings? Big question. What is the cost-benefit analysis of being on the register? It is my understanding that the dollar value of repairing a building with a historic designation may be 6 to 7 times more than the normal repair cost. That does not include delays and bureaucratic wrangling. Big deal, historic designation. Where are we cutting ourselves short? The county has finite resources. Why isn't there an overall 10 to 20 year projected debt plan showing expenses, capital projects, and debt? Even though we are in good position now in terms of debt, I would like and I would want to peek into the future. I have no comfort that we won't need this money for a myriad of more important things down the road.
You have about a minute remaining.
Oh, good. Okay. I had no idea I was on a time schedule. Okay, so is this figure $30 million realistic? You've got that information there. Okay. let me take you to this, the second page, the relationship with the voters. Okay, people that I chat with think that this should be done by a referendum, if at all. I understand that it is not legally required, but there is a growing alienation between voters and the government. There's a ripple effect, and I will tell you that the people that I personally have talked to don't know about this project. I think that the 25 of you, you owe it to your constituents to really get the word out and make a determination as to, is this what they really want? How much time do I have left?
About 10 seconds.
Okay, all right. So this decision is an independent decision, and we don't want to throw good money after bad. It's a new time, and it should be a new decision. And you can read the rest of it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comments, Mr. Wire. I just would like to note our County Board rules state there's a 5-minute limit for public input, just if anybody else is looking to speak. Yes, sir. And if you could, just please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Frederick, and I own a company in Manitowoc, MCM Composites, and we're at 1315 South 41st Street. I actually live in Fond du Lac County, but I pay taxes here, so I thought I would have a right to speak. And we did get our tax bill today, and I'm happy to say that the county portion of the tax bill went down again. So I'm thrilled to see that, and I think this county board and its leadership has done just a great job running a difficult operation, and it is difficult. So I say that on the front end. This project is out of character for the county. For me, it's something that just seems unbelievable. The people I've mentioned it to, they say, and in fact, when Gene mentioned it to me, I said, no, that can't be true, but it is true. So I prepared a letter, and it's on one page, and I've got just a couple points. I would encourage you when you're analyzing this, and I hope you have an open mind on whether you're voting yes or no. But you're spending $30 million. So question, what are you getting for that? You have some core duties as a county, safety one, public works another, and health and human services. So if you're going to spend $30 million on infrastructure, at least it should benefit those core principles that you're endeavoring to perform efficiently and at a reasonable cost for taxpayers. So that needs to be done, and you should look at it that way. My second point is the county should not be in the restoration business. If this $30 million is restoration of a historical building, and I don't know what makes it historical, it's an old building, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But get out of that business. That is nothing that the taxpayers of the county should have to pay for. There are a lot of people that don't live in Manitowoc and could care less about the county courthouse, probably. That should be funded with private capital or grants from private entities, not sales tax or bonds or property taxes. The other point, third point, is when you're analyzing this project, think in terms of what is seen and what is not seen. Well, what is seen is very clear. We're going to spend quite a lot of money, and we're going to get I don't mean to oversimplify it, but a stained glass dome. Really nice. Looks great. Looks like it did 100 years ago. Great. But it costs $30 million. So the question is, where do you get that $30 million? You can only get it from the taxpayers. And one way or another, if you bond it, the taxpayers are paying it. property tax, sales tax, but you are taking the $30 million that's going into the project, you are taking $30 million out of the economy in Manitowoc. That $30 million more likely is going to be spent in Manitowoc on something that the taxpayers would rather spend their money on. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. And the fourth and final point is the awesome power of this county board. That's all I need, is to the awesome power of taxation of private property. Government, in its purest form, is formed to protect your safety and to protect your private property. And what you're doing here is forcing people to pay for this, to pay this $30 million. So you have that power. Do not abuse that power. I think if you went to most people and said, hey, we want to put a new roof on the courthouse, nice stained glass window, we hired this fancy architectural firm and they can do it, probably won't get fixed bids on any of the contracts, because who would do that? Nobody. Probably cost more than $30 million. If you went to a person, any taxpayer in your district, and say, what do you think of this? They go, first of all, they wouldn't believe the number. And secondly, they probably wouldn't pay it. So I have the letter. I appreciate your reading it, and thank you very much for the time tonight.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public who would like to speak tonight? Any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, Ms. Yost?
Chip Yost, Centerville. I begin with a reminder that open enrollment in the Affordable Care Act runs until January 15th. Participating in the program ensures that enrollees will not pay more than 8.5% of their household income through 2025. Through my life experience, I know that each of us has our own mix of activities we are good at and enjoy, called our intelligences. For many of us, our eyes start to glaze over when we deal with numbers, budgeting, and accounting. Tonight, I suggest that our county financial processes should be plain spoken and intelligible to our county residents and taxpayers. They pay the bills, after all, so should know what they are paying for. I have already documented, according to county financial records, that over County Executive Ziegelbauer's tenure since 2006, the principal amounts of his proposed and adopted budgets were $44 million. After adding in interest and issue fees, that amount ballooned to $60 million. But what did our 36,000 plus property taxpayers actually pay? At the end of 2021, the amount our county records report from 2006 to 2021 is $74 million. That's 68% more than Ziegelbauer's adopted budgets. Let's not accept more of the time value of money as a facade to justify borrowing and indebting our 36,000 plus property taxpayers for millions of dollars over decades of years. It's a credible, real theory, but inappropriate and financially exploitive in this situation for our county's property taxpayers. The Wisconsin Policy Forum cautions, ultimately, the more local governments and taxpayers must spend to pay off past borrowing, the more difficult it will be for them to finance ongoing services and projects. Helping local officials to keep debts under control now ensures that they will be able to meet their community needs in the future. Clearly, County Executive Ziegelbauer planned to renovate the 115-year-old courthouse, as almost $900,000 will be spent to build the fourth courtroom and remodel the child support offices. Why didn't he plan and save for the $30 million renovation or a new building? Consider that new construction would be approximately $35 million in principal, according to Ziegelbauer's estimate. Bear in mind that we are duty bound by this state statute, quoting, "A state agency or local government unit shall investigate and consider the maximum conservation of energy resources as an important factor when making any major decision that would significantly affect energy usage. Would new construction be more energy efficient? If you looked at the amortization schedule for borrowing $30 million for 20 years at the then prime rate of 7%, you know that halfway through the loan at year 11, our county will have a beginning balance for that month of $18.6 million and an ending
About
balance.
1 minute remaining.
Ending balance of $18.5 million. That is an example of the reason that I say that it is cheaper to pay as we go. We eliminate paying all that interest to bondholders. And so, as I've said so many times before, I continue to advocate for a half cent and a dollar spent countywide sales tax, as the borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:17. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yost. Is there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Any other members of the public who'd like to speak? For a third and final time, seeing none, I will declare public comment closed. That will take us to appointments by the county executive. Our first appointment is for our new Human Services Director, Lori Fury. Supervisor Bry. Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Hanson. Any discussion on the appointment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries and the appointment's approved. Congratulations, Lori. Lori, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to come up and say a few words?
Hi. My understanding of this was to just kind of let you put a face with a name, and I'm sorry, my face is covered up, but I'm trying not to spread COVID. So that's why I have a mask. Anyway, I have been with the Human Services Department since 1993. So I feel like I have a lot of experience. I know the system pretty well. I've worked in a lot of different areas, and I just want to thank Bob for giving me this opportunity. I really hope that our department can continue to be a good resource for the community.
Thank you and congratulations. Next, we have an appointment for the Expo Ice Center Board to fill a vacancy that expires December 31st of 2023. The appointment is for Matthew Pulowski. Do I see a motion? Supervisor Benke, second by Supervisor Sikowitz. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The appointment is approved. Next is for an appointment to the Joint Dispatch Board. The appointment is for Joe Janty for a term commencing on January 11th, 2023 and expiring in June of 2024. Do I see a motion? Motion by Supervisor Falkowski, second by Supervisor Vogt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The appointment is approved. Next is for the Manitowoc-Calumet Library System Board of Trustees. We have two appointments, Deborah Brotke and Charles Krieger. Do I see a motion? Motion by Supervisor Mink, second by Supervisor Niles. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, next we will go to our committee reports. First is our Planning and Park Commission. Supervisor Falkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Planning and Park Commission meeting was on Monday, December 5th. We proceeded on to the items for our docket that day. One was the public hearing for a rezone request, and the second was for the site development plan and subdivision review. First for our consideration tonight is the Casey Stengel parcel in the town of Two Creeks requesting a change from exclusive ag to general ag. A letter was received from the town of Two Creeks affirming the request, and it was added to the record. Lee Engelbrecht, as town chairman, spoke confirming the town's support and answered any questions from the commissioners. A motion was made to approve the rezone request and passed unanimously. Therefore, on behalf of the commission, I so move to submit and accept ordinance 2022-2023-44 amending the zoning map for Casey Stengel.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Engelbrecht. Any discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote. Wait a minute.
Supervisors will now vote on the ordinance amending zoning map for Casey Stengel.
And the ordinance is adopted.
The commission continued on to the review of the certified survey development plan and subdivision for the Creekwood Estates in the city of Manitowoc. Director Ryan read the summary for the request, followed by the commissioners discussing the plans, and afterwards a motion was made to approve and passed unanimously. Finally, we discussed and referred several code ordinance violations to the corporate council for enforcement appropriately. Lastly, we approved 2 out-of-county trips for staff conferences. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 23, 2023. Please check your notices for posted meeting notices. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Falkowski. That'll take us to the Aging and Disability Board. Supervisor Wagner.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Martell. The next meeting of the ADRC will be January 24th, 2023 in Manitowoc County at this building, and that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Wagner. Next, we have our Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Supervisor Falkowski. Oh, I'm sorry, Board of Health, Supervisor Metzger.
We met November 17th. With the COVID cases have declined. In 7 days, we have 11 cases average, a total of 24,037 cases. Just over 100 additional cases since our last meeting, but that would be like for 2 months. Hospitalizations have declined, 7-day average, 45 people. 19 deaths continue, with 9 deaths reported since last meeting, 205 total deaths. We are administrating the Bivalent booster shots every Friday from 10 to 4. Manitowoc County is still a low COVID community level. The upper respiratory triple threat, it's called, and you get the RSV and influenza and COVID-19. That's been going around pretty bad in the county. We accepted the fee schedule for 2023. We will now be collecting Medicaid as part of our, they're going to be included in the fees that everybody else pays. And we also converted a public health nurse to public health technician, and she's going to start helping collecting for that Medicaid that we need. Monkeypox, there was 13 clients that were vaccinated. We're doing the routine for the administration, I can't say the word, the shots, and for the clinics and in the schools. And they're going to try and have it on all all schools, not just public. They're going to try and start that with partnering with other groups. An Narcan Direct program started. 12 people are trained, and 6 foster families also are trained. Electronic health record will be launched January 1st. Radiation sampling bid is in process. The WIC director report in October was 937 patients and 566 families with a caseload of 923. Our next meeting will be January 12th at 5 o'clock. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Metzger. Next, we will have the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Supervisor Falkowski.
I do not have a report tonight. I believe the next council meeting is January 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Falkowski. Executive Committee. The Executive Committee met jointly with Public Works on the 8th here in this room to discuss the resolution to create a special advisory committee for the Courthouse Dome project. The resolution did not pass as is, so we have not yet created that committee. The pleasure of the committee was to return it back to Corporation Council, where we would be looking at adding citizen members to the advisory committee and changing up some of the language of the resolution. So I'm planning hopefully to have another discussion on that in the new year. We will see what Corporation Council gets us. Thank you. Let's see. Supervisor Bry.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So by saying having another discussion, are you going to bring it directly to the county board, or are you going to plan on having another executive committee / joint public works committee meeting, or other meetings for that matter?
My intention would be to have another meeting of the executive committee, potentially joined by the Public Works Committee.
With the new additions of the 5, or the new, I guess, potential amendment that was considered at the last meeting.
Yeah, with any of the changes to make
Perfect.
sure that nobody else wanted to make any more changes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Next, we have the Expo Ice Center Board. Supervisor, who do we have today? Sikowitz.
We had no meeting, no report.
Perfect, thank you. Finance Committee, Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met jointly with Public Works the other night. We just paid some bills, cleaned up a few little things, nothing major. Finance Committee all 5 members voted in favor of the project we will discuss later tonight. And please, if you have questions on that project, please ask them when that resolution comes up. Thank you, that's all I got.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Highway Committee, Supervisor Benke. Supervisor Droll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Highway Committee met December 13th. We approved the airport mechanic license agreement. We reviewed and discussed the workman's comp claims, which have been very low. We reviewed and discussed the overtime report. We're in very good shape.
In December, boy, we're not jumping ahead here enough. In January of 2023. But I guess I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I look forward to having our new appointee as Human Services Director, Lori Fury. Looking very forward to working with her. She's a very good person. I've known her for many, many years, and I'm looking forward to working with her. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Land Conservation and UW Extension and Agriculture Committee, Supervisor Wagner.
Okay, we have a resolution, number 2, a resolution authorizing surface water management grant application. Whereas the approved Manitowoc County Land and Water Resource Plan identifies concerns with non-point pollution of surface water and groundwater contamination in Manitowoc County. And whereas the non-point source pollution is the most important remaining uncontrolled source of water pollution to the Lake Michigan ecosystem. And whereas the Pine Creek sub-watershed located in Manitowoc County is identified as the state of Wisconsin's impaired waters list. And whereas a 9-key point plan has developed and approved in 2019 for the Pine Creek sub-watershed, identifying environmental stressors and provides a coordinated effort to ensure that the most effective, best management practices are selected and implemented to reduce the pollution runoff from a variety of sources. Now therefore be resolved that the County Board of Supervisors of the County of Manitowoc authorizes the Soil and Water Conservation Department to apply for and accept a surface water management grant for management plan implementation in the amount up to $50,000 and a surface water management grant for surface water education in the amount of $5,000 to hire a summer intern for 10 weeks in 2023 for stream inventory, data collections, and landowner outreach. Also move.
Thank you, Supervisor Wagner. I hear a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Phipps. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution authorizing surface water management grant application.
And the resolution is adopted. Any other business, Supervisor Wagner?
If anybody has any questions on this resolution, David Wettenkamp is here, if he could answer more if you want. The next Land Conservation Committee will be January 19th in 2023. And let's see. UW Extension, Education, and Agriculture Committee's meeting will be February 16th in 2023, and both meetings will be held at the County Office Complex. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. And Mr. Wettenkamp, did you want to make a comment on the resolution? I saw you raise your hand. I didn't know if you were looking to speak. Perfect. Thank you. All right, next that'll take us to the Personnel Committee. Supervisor Marsh.
Thank you. We met December 6th and approved the reallocation of the Health Department FTE from health nurse to public health technician to help meet the Health Department needs. That resolution will be coming up later. Also, we met tonight before our county board meeting to approve the extension of vacation for a human services employee, which we approved. Our next meeting will be February 7th at 4:30, and that ends my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Marsh. Public Safety Committee, Supervisor Valkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee met December 14th with all members present. After acknowledging the sent monthly reports and budgets, we offered some time for public comment and started our agenda, but reopened public comment to hear from a representative of the League of Women Voters as an observer. Afterwards, the clerk of court-elect, Ms. Higgins, introduced herself to the committee and provided us with a brief description of her 9 years' experience in the clerk of court's office. The department report for that day was from the Family Court Commissioner, Luke Lafleur. We had an abundance of information provided to our committee that day and had the fortune and opportunity with some of the principal actors with the court's procedures being present. As the Commissioner Lafleur described his responsibilities with the court and with his duties, he additionally described some issues to be considered in various cases heard in family court. The caseload included paternity actions as well as divorce proceedings. Child support agencies initiating proceedings can involve custody, placement, support determination, and other issues, including venue, jurisdiction, tax deduction assignments, and other associated matters. As an example, in divorce proceedings, the determination how to request changes in an order or enforce an order when other parents or parties that are not complying, he could be, or would be heard by him in the Family Courts Commission. There is a number of services that are available to that tends to lead parties to work to have them work things out, including going through the actions through the family courts system. This includes the use of mediation and appointments of a guardian ad litem to make recommendations regarding children. If the parties are still in disagreement, a trial is heard before a circuit court judge. For most domestic abuse and harassment injunctions are heard by the family court commissioners. Fortunately, there are a small percentage of high conflict cases to be heard, but these are repeatedly in court and often requires the presence of a bailiff. Additionally, he handles some of the small claims hearings on his calendar, as well as weddings. Questions from the committee members were clearly and procedurally clarified by having the court officers confer. When asked about the new court branch, he thinks it would unlikely be significant to change his caseload, but it will primarily get cases heard sooner when it needs to be heard by a judge. The benefits of the new circuit court branch on the lowest level is physically locating a bailiff. This will provide improved safety for the hearings being conducted. Knowing the intersectionality of all the departments, this helped our committee to understand the public safety aspects. In this case, it has been many years since we've ever actually had a report from the family court. The committee thanked the Commissioner LaFleur for the detailed briefing and appreciation for his ongoing successful effort, and also to the clerk of court-elect, Ms. Higgins, for attending. There will not be a meeting in January unless there's an urgent item requiring a stand-up meeting. Our next meeting date is scheduled for February 8th at the C&T building at 5 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Valkowski. Next, we will have our Public Works Committee, Supervisor Durrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public Works met jointly with the Finance Committee on December 12th. Our portion of the meeting, we approved a pay request for Branch 4 and the Child Support Office's construction project. We discussed and approved a pay request for the Community Development Block Grant funded courthouse restroom ADA remodel project. And we accepted the bids for the Expo Music Pavilion replacement going to Valley Building Systems. I will introduce a resolution under the O miscellaneous in the agenda. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Durrell. Next, we have the Transportation Coordinating Committee, Supervisor Hacker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Coordinating Committee met November 16th to review third quarter progress and results. Third quarter ridership was up 16% over second quarter 2022 and 25% higher than first quarter 2022. Ridership increased 31% from 2020 to 2021 and is anticipated to increase another 11% in 2022. The committee discussed co-payment increases for 2023 from $1.75 to $2 per one-way trip for Ascend passengers, and from $5.50, which was set in 2010, to $7 per one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hacker. Next, we have our miscellaneous items. First is going to be a resolution coming out of Personnel and the Board of Health. Supervisor Marsh.
Thank you. This is the resolution that I had talked about earlier, changing the health, the needs for the health department. So I so move, creating a public health technician 1.0 full-time equivalent position.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution creating public health technician full-time equivalent position.
And the resolution is adopted. Next, we'll have a resolution for the purchase of the Lakeside Foods corporate office building. Supervisor Jarrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're introducing a resolution 2022-2023-47, approving the purchase of the Lakeside Foods corporate office building. I so move.
There's a motion and a second by Supervisor Hanson. Any discussion? Supervisor Bry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned, and when we had the joint meeting between Public Works and Finance, this is a no-brainer to the Manitowoc County purchase this property and building. It's a facility that's ready basically to use for our Human Service Department and other county functions as well. And the price is phenomenal to do this. And a lot of credit should go out to our Public Works Director, Jerry Noiser, and our Finance Director, J.J. Gutman, who has actually come up with a better, I questioned at the meeting how we were going to pay for this, and actually through grants and depreciation properties and stuff with that, with the United States and state government, we should be able to pay this off in several years that way. So it's a win-win situation for Manitowoc County. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Supervisor Metzger?
I'm still concerned if the old Human Services building is really full. I know about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we all took that tour, and there's so much empty space in there, and I talked to the county exec, and he said that it's full. But I don't know, I'm just hoping that that is the correct answer on that, because if there's space over there, that should be used first before we purchase more buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Metzger. Supervisor Bry?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I guess thank you for bringing up that question, because that is a very good question. The Human Services Board knows as well. We recently took a tour about 3 months ago of the facility. Unless they were putting some facades up, trust me, it is very full. It's I give them a lot of credit for working in some of the situations they were working in. There's a lot of crowding, so this will definitely help alleviate that problem. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Supervisor Hanson?
Just a clarification, we've hired 34 people over the last 2 years. Luckily, much of their salary is paid through state grants and state funding, but that's 34 new people in the building. And the type of work that Human Services does, many times having clients and people come in and talking with workers or confidential phone calls, it's not something you can do in cubicles where other people can be close enough to hear what's going on. So we really do need the space. It's a great deal, $29 per square foot. The real estate price is $400,000 less than they're now getting assessed for taxes. In this real estate market, that's a great deal. So very much I approve this.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Supervisor Phipps?
One of the questions I was pondering is, are we going to use the new building in conjunction with the old building? What's happening with the old building? That's the question I have.
Yes.
Yeah. In short answer, the answer is yes. Both buildings, the existing building is, quite frankly, I think overly full, and this is additional space that's needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Phipps. Supervisor Hacker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I personally toured the building last Tuesday, and it is full. There is no space to spare over there, and it became obvious to me through the course of the tour that the space that was the old library is definitely needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Hacker. Supervisor Hanson.
Nope.
You were going to answer that question, weren't you? Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Supervisor Nato.
Yes, I would just like some clarification as to how it is being paid for. I had talked to Bob, and he said that there was going to be no money borrowed to pay for this, that there was a fund that was set aside. Is that correct, Bob?
Supervisor Hanson.
The money that we have currently in the Human Service Department fund is money that we have saved over the last couple years, many years. You know, a human service budget goes up and down because you never know how much need there is in a community. We've been able to save enough. My understanding is that there is money within that fund to pay for the building, so we will not be borrowing. Correct?
Kind of where the money is initially coming from, but as JJ mentioned, our finance director, that money can be replaced through, I guess, depreciation and through grants and stuff for the federal and state government. So it's definitely a win-win situation here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Supervisor Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The answer to that question is actually in the resolution in line 59 through 61. It actually says where the money is going to be coming from. So it is coming from a special fund in the Human Services Department.
Thank you, Supervisor Weiss. Anybody else who would like to speak? All right, seeing no further discussion, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution approving the purchase of the Lakeside Foods Corporate Office Building.
And the resolution is approved. With no further business, just the only announcement I would like to make is to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and hope you have a relaxing holiday. And I'll be the first to say it. We'll see you next year. Item B, motion to adjourn. Supervisor Bry, second by Supervisor Marish. We are adjourned.